Today we're talking about war.
What is actually going through someone's mind when they press the trigger and a missile comes down and kills a bunch of innocent kids? What has actually gone through their mind?
In Vedic times, the warriors fight the warriors, the civilians are over here, whereas now it's the people that are fighting on the front line probably should be in the civilian department.
Warriors are no longer warriors today. Leaders are no longer leaders today. It's all done very sentimentally and based on what will get me power and influence.
Human beings shouldn't be able to see all of the suffering in the world. I would say only God has the capacity to see the suffering that's going on and have compassion.
Before we jump into this episode, I'd love to invite you to join this candid spiritual community to hear more conversations that will help you become happier, healthier, and more healed. All I want you to do is click on that subscribe button because I love your support. I love seeing all the comments pouring through, all the love pouring through, and we're just getting started. I can't wait to go on this journey with you, whether you're a spiritual seeker or you're just curious about the topic. And we really hope that our conversations will provide you food for thought and inspiration for your own spiritual journey. So join us for honest, candid discussions about spirituality for soul's sake.
For soul's sake, for soul's sake.
Welcome to our For Soul's Sake podcast with none other than Nāma and for the final time, Mr. Keli Woods.
Boo.
No.
Oh my God. While we've got this opportunity, I just want to say a deep gratitude from my heart for all the time, the energy, the laughs and the knowledge and the wisdom and the poetic grace with which you've graced our podcast.
Thank you.
And we'll work on getting you on some specials in the future.
Okay.
But for now, thank you so much. This is a final episode in which Keli's going to appear for now as he works on building an empire of creative, grandioso, incredible, amazing, loving, transcendental music. But for now, we're just going to just give him a round of applause for all of his efforts and his kind appearance on this podcast.
We'll miss you.
Thank you.
But we have got him for this episode, so we're going to get stuck straight in. This is Bhagavad Gita, verse number
42.
42,
442.
yeah? 442, chapter 4, text number 42. Today we're talking about war.
Ooh.
We're talking about fighting, talking about... See, like, as spiritualists, sometimes we bypass major world issues, or we're accused of bypassing them, and so we're going to deal with it head on. And this verse is quite interesting because Krishna, God, is telling Arjuna to fight, to stand and fight. Therefore, the doubts which have arisen in your heart, Arjuna, of ignorance should be slashed by the weapon of knowledge. Armed with yoga, O Bharata, stand and fight.
That's just so interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Armed with yoga. Like,
What, with a yoga mat and that?
yeah, armed with your Lululemons. Like, that's so interesting. Armed with, and what does he say? The weapon of
knowledge.
the weapon of
Weapon
knowledge.
of knowledge.
Armed with yoga. Wow, strong words.
I think there's multiple things, like why this is even being said right now as well, just to
Right.
provide some context, and then I think it'd be nice to dive in, is Arjuna has just gone through a crisis. A whole chapter where he's just talked about his crisis in terms of he's anxious on this battlefield, fighting his family, his cousins. He doesn't want to do it. He's falling weak. He's like, let me just go hide in a cave and do my spiritual practice. I think that's the best thing for me. And then Krishna is just kind of looking at him, well, you're a trained elite archer and a soldier. So you need to like get your stuff together. Here's the spiritual sort of truths and philosophies and conclusions which you need to arm yourself with, which is why your mind is just reeling all over the place. And then he's kind of concluding here and saying, get yourself together, arm yourself with all this wisdom that I'm teaching you. And that as your basis, go and perform your duty as the soldier and fight in the war. And it's really interesting because, and we'll get into the war bit as well, but Krishna speaks to Arjuna as a soldier, not as like just a mate or just that, this, that, the other. He talks to him with a certain level of, he's probing him a bit, teasing him a bit as a soldier. As a soldier, he's trained in a particular art. He doesn't like his ego to be hit too much, but Krishna's really egging him on.
Yeah.
And it's quite aggressive with it. But he's saying, but all of that, be who you are, be the soldier that you want to be, fight in this war, which is extremely violent, and you're fighting your cousins, but do it with the level of knowledge in yoga and the science of the soul that I've been teaching you with. And I think that's the interesting thing about this battle relative to the battles we see in the world today.
Right.
Can you even call it a battle? It's more like a massacre in
Right.
most cases, right?
Like not armed with knowledge, which is not armed with guru, and not armed with yoga, not armed with connection with God. Without guru and God,
Yeah.
who are you going to fight? You know, because you don't know, you don't have any guidance, you don't know who you're fighting and what you're fighting for. And if it's not done with a connection, with a yoga, a connection to God, then again, what's the fight about?
It's
Contrast to,
Yeah.
like you're saying, contrast to today's world, right?
It's interesting because if you look at like the martial laws of the Vedic time, when armies went to battle, they would choose a particular time, a particular place. All of the soldiers knew exactly what they were signing up for.
Yeah, yeah.
There was particular codes of conduct. They would stop battle at night, rest. They would actually eat together, then continue the next day. And so there was a certain code of conduct. There was certain ethics and morality behind soldiers. And they all knew, I'm going to enter this battle, I'm probably going to die. And interesting thing is, it was never done in the city or in the town with
Where civilians were.
where the innocent civilians are. So you're not harming them. It's just, we're soldiers, we're going to fight this out. Whoever wins, we've agreed the terms.
Like Kurukshetra is a barren land.
Yeah.
It's a land that was chosen as a place for the Bhagavad Gita to be, well, that's where Bhagavad Gita was spoken by Krishna. Gita being song, Bhagavad being God. So the song of God is spoken on a battlefield, a place which was chosen as a place where battle was going to happen. It was designated as a place for that to happen.
I think that's the thing I struggle with currently is how, by the decisions of our leaders, we become entangled in the war without choosing so. That's the thing that personally frustrates me, is that as a pacifist in that sense, I didn't say, yeah, I want to go to war with this country,
Right.
you know, but I'm forced into that situation, as all civilians are forced into that situation, if that's the decision that is made by the country. But in Vedic times, it would be kept separate. The warriors fight the warriors, the civilians are over here, and you know that hierarchy is actually healthy.
Yeah.
Whereas now it's also, you have the people that are fighting on the front line probably should be in the civilian department.
Yeah.
You know, they're not necessarily qualified to fight. It might not actually be their nature to be a warrior in that sense. And we see people go to war, they come back with terrible trauma, and you know, like these people fighting in Kurukshetra, they didn't have PTSD because they were like, I'm a flipping warrior, like this is what I do, I'm here for it, you know.
Blood.
Yeah.
And that's interesting you mentioned that, because just as we speak about how warriors are no longer warriors today, leaders are no longer leaders today.
Yeah.
And so people making decisions are not informed by any sense of intelligence. It's all done very sentimentally and based on what will get me power and influence and what will get me the most popularity and the next vote in, and therefore I can make money with, you know, in indiscriminate ways, in illegal ways, actually.
I think we get a lot of stick for, like you said, spiritual bypassing.
Yeah.
But it's ironic whenever people bring this up, you're spiritual bypassing this specific war or this specific event. Like, there's so much going on in the world at the moment. You almost have to choose your battles,
Right.
Because you might bring your attention to this event, but 100% there's something else just as terrible going on somewhere else that you have no idea about.
Yeah.
And so, you know, are you just gonna say, okay, no to it all, or no to just this, but that can carry on, you know? And there's so much going on behind closed doors, and it's difficult not to bypass in that sense. Like, I personally feel, this might be controversial,
Here we go.
but I feel that human beings shouldn't be able to see all of the suffering in the world. Because I don't think we've got enough compassion to deal with that.
Capacity.
We don't have the capacity. Like, I would say only God has the capacity to see the suffering that's going on and have compassion for that. But that's why I think social media is really dangerous, because
it's
do
prime
we
example.
as individuals have that capacity to really see all of this suffering and feel like we can do something about that? You
We
know?
almost become numb because of the overexposure.
We definitely become
and therefore
numb.
we lack empathy, we lack any sympathy, we can't feel that much pain. Like, we don't have the capacity for it. And so therefore we think it's completely normal. And that's the insane part.
That's so
that
true.
this is normal for people based on an invisible line to bomb one another at night when children are sleeping in civilian areas. That's in no way stretch or and this is where it's interesting, where spiritual bypassing, like you said, we choose our battles. The battle that spiritualists generally will choose is to try and elevate the consciousness of the people, starting with the root. So it's not about, in one sense, okay, again, controversial statement, it's not about being on the front line always, but at least trying to get people to cross a line in the heart to realize that they're not the body. They're not this nation. They're not, no, there's an essence beyond that, that spirituality is trying to tap us into, trying to awaken us to.
I mean, yeah, like when I hear, say, the UK is going to war, right?
Yeah.
So the more I identify with being English, the more I'm going to be invested in that.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, I flipping love beans on toast.
Oh,
I had some for breakfast this morning, actually.
so did I.
Really?
That's crazy. What
Wow.
the hell? That's nuts.
I love beans on toast.
There was
I love...
nothing. There was nothing else in the fridge. It was just I had to choose bread. There was no cheese.
I just felt like some
Oh my
cheesy
gosh.
beans. And
Yeah.
Do I need to come round and like help you or something?
Yeah, I know.
Sounds like you're being held captive there. But I love things that are British. I sound very British. I look very British. You know, like this coat is from Toast, which is a Welsh brand, and I really like it because it's Welsh. And like I lived in Wales for some time, and right? So to some extent I do identify with my nation, but not to the extent where I want to go into war with someone else.
yeah.
And we were saying this in our previous episode, this idea of ahankara, this false identity of, you know, I am my nation, my skin color, my, you know, etc. That can get us in a lot of trouble, actually.
Pickled.
You know,
People have a
Big
lot
pickle.
of
Big pickle.
yeah, like patriotism. You know,
Yeah.
being a patriot to your country. I've never felt it ever, because I
never
don't think I've really belonged to any particular country. I'm neither Indian.
Oh,
fully.
come on. Who do you support when the cricket's on? England or India?
India.
Huh?
India.
There we go. There is some patriotism.
No, there is, but I'm not like a. I go to India.
You wouldn't kill someone based on their nationality.
No, but like you have some people who are totally wedded to their country.
Yeah.
You know.
this is interesting as well, though, because you're showing that we're actually quite a mix these days.
Totally.
You know, no one's purely this or that.
Yeah.
You know, like
Global
my
citizen.
mum was from this country, my dad was from that country. We grew up here and then moved there, and then so who am I? Who am I fighting for?
Right.
You know, like
Yeah, exactly.
My dad was born in Kenya.
right,
My mum was born in India.
right,
Same.
They both migrated to the UK.
right,
I've never been to Kenya before.
right.
I still haven't been there.
So
I
if
will
Africa,
come. I will come. I'll
India, and the UK go to war, like where are you?
I don't know. I'll be hiding in Antarctica.
Eating beans on toast.
Eating my beans on toast.
But it's such a dangerous thing, right? Like, I mean, patriotism's great, but at the same time, you are not your country, and you never will be your country, right? A country is just a border; it's a land governed by a particular government.
Yeah.
And so, this whole point about leadership, right? A leader is thinking about their people. What is best for their people? What do I want to do? And is it best for my people for me to go to war and bring them into a war with me? Where in the Vedic times, it's like, I know what's best for my people. So therefore, myself and an opposing party are going to go somewhere else to battle this out to ultimately make that decision. And like you were saying, Radhika, like, what is actually going through someone's mind when they press the trigger and a missile comes down and kills a bunch of innocent kids? What has actually gone through their mind?
Yeah.
Clearly nothing is going through that person's mind.
I think there must be a level of detachment because, for instance, before I became a vegetarian, obviously I grew up eating meat. And the switch for me was I opened the fridge and I saw the bacon rashers and I saw the pig. And I'd never put the two together before.
Ah, interesting.
I know, it's weird for us to think.
But there's like, I think there must be a distance that you have to create to go like beep and not really actually think about what you've done. You have to be detached in some sense.
And that's where that quote that I quote so often by Martin Luther King comes into play here. Which Martin Luther King, he says that those who love peace must learn to organize themselves as effectively as those who love war.
Right.
And I'm damn certain that those who love war in today's day and age have worked very hard to create propaganda such that the distance has been created so you cannot conceive that the other person on the end of the bomb is a human being.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of propaganda going on there
Yeah.
to make us not even think that this is another human being. And that's why 99% of people can go about their daily lives and be happy.
It's also being totally eluded by your false and often extreme attachment to your country and nation. Like if you look at the history of like USSR, for example, and it continues today, there's an extreme attachment to a particular historic view of a particular nation, right, in the countries. And that, when it's like overemphasized, completely eludes any sort of sense of logic or compassion or morality. They all go out the window.
Yeah.
And this is so interesting when we're talking here about Arjuna go to fight equipped with knowledge and yoga,
Yes.
right? To be equipped with knowledge and yoga means to be equipped with understanding of the true self, and to be understanding that in order to perform my duties in this world, I have to have control over my mind and senses. And that's backed with me understanding truly who I am, what's my real ego. Where the opposite is I'm totally governed by my mind and my senses and sense of false identity, that it completely deludes any actions I do in the world. In a martial state, it's catastrophe, right? It's fascinating, actually.
Well, I think that's, I guess, the responsibility, in my eyes, of those who aren't directly involved in war is to create propaganda that helps us to realize who we truly are beyond nationality, beyond the body. Like, one might say that spiritualists bypass the topic, but I think spiritualists need to unite on the topic. And what do I mean by that? I mean, let's first get clear on who we are in our essence. Let's get clear on what the purpose of this life is. And fine, there might be reasons for which you have to go to war. I can fully understand that. Look, there's too many nuances and variables here for me to be able to understand the full situation of any of the wars that are currently going on in the world, including any of the decisions that government makes. I don't know any of that. I'm ignorant in one sense. But I guess what responsibility do I have as a human being is to understand who I truly am and to try and help others to understand who they truly are in their essence. And in so doing, hopefully, that might inspire a new version of leadership.
Yeah.
Like, I may not be the prime minister of this country. I don't ever want to be. That's not what I'm aiming for.
Yeah, that's something I really appreciate about you, is that you act more within your circle of influence rather than your circle of concern. And
Oh, thanks, mate.
well, that's how you get stuff done.
Yeah.
And I think that's why so many people are frustrated, is because we're seeing all of this mayhem and we feel powerless,
Well,
you know?
Yeah.
Whereas if we say, actually, this is my circle of influence, even if it's one person, two people,
yeah.
whatever it is, then you'll feel a fulfillment of like, actually, I went out into my community today and I did something.
Right.
Rather than sitting at home and doom scrolling and being like, how do I help people that are over there on that side of the world or this side of the world? Or what can I really do, you know? So that's, for me, that's a point, is like, if you want to be an activist and you want to make a difference in the world, like just start here, start locally,
Yeah.
you know. And even more locally, like there's the battle, like you were mentioning, going on within ourselves, you know. There's the
Wow.
battle of the mind and the senses. Like first let's control that,
Yeah.
you know. Like we're not going to be able to stop a war that's going on externally if there's a war going on internally.
Right.
Yeah. I'm a big promoter. Like I think about this a lot, and I think about I call it sustainable spirituality.
Okay.
And what I mean by this is we don't want to create quick fixes. Quick fixes don't solve the root of the problem. But when we, like for example, to control the mind and the senses will ultimately sustain someone's spiritual journey, will ultimately create sustainable solutions for whatever problems happen in the future. That's the root cause, essentially, of a lot of what's going on in the world. Rather than just putting a quick patch on something now. You know, I'm frustrated because I can't do anything. Well, why save a couple of lives now when you can do real sustainable work to save 1 million lives, you know, in the future? So it's not to say that there's a value, but
Yeah. I mean, we kind of get on this topic quite a lot, and I guess it is because it's the need, interest, and concern of the people of the modern age is they need good guidance.
yeah,
You know? Like, I feel it's imperative that no matter who you are, you receive guidance on the things that matter most in life. Yes, get business advice. Yes, get advice on how to manage your household and your family, and get therapy, and, you know, get advice on your psychology. But I think guidance on the meaning of life.
There's this verse in the Gita, yad yad acharati srasas, which talks about whatever action a great man performs, common people follow that action. I had a glimpse of this in India this year.
Okay.
Do you remember that day that you were leading a kirtan? We were outside, and I was just really happy, and I started dancing, and I was dancing more and more enthusiastically, and one person joined, and then two people, and then before you knew it, like everyone was dancing with me.
Yeah.
And I thought that's how you make a change in the world, actually, you know. And so I got a glimpse of that, and I think we can all feel empowered as leaders in that sense.
Yeah.
You know. And it doesn't have to be a huge thing. You don't have to rewrite law or, you know, shut down the nuclear bomb warehouse or whatever it is. But if people can see you being a strong person and stepping into leadership, and even just being a happy person,
Yeah.
you know, if you do that with confidence, then eventually people will follow you. As a creative, I'm interested in the idea of you know, there's this fantastic saint who's also, I think, one of the greatest songwriters that ever lived, called Bhaktivinoda Thakur.
Uh-huh.
And so when Bhaktivinoda Thakur wrote a song, he didn't write songs like, you should do this, you should change like this. He would write songs from the first person, right? He'd say, I'm struggling in this way, you know, I'm experiencing this and that. Whether he was or not, I don't know, but I feel more inspired to change when I hear what someone else is going through, and then I relate to that,
That's
rather
profound.
than them telling me you should do this. Then I don't feel inspired to change.
That's
So
profound.
I like that point of kind of being the change that you want to see in the world, like
Definitely.
Gandhi said.
yeah,
Wow, that's profound. In fact, you know, subconsciously, when we go on a retreat, for example, the seminars that we aim to give, we place a piece of wisdom in front of the audience. And then we also try to, and I know that the three of us all do this, we try and then go, in my life, I've experienced this from this angle, and this is the struggle I've had with it. And that part is what inspires people to make the change.
Yeah,
It's
because
not
they
the
listen
philosophy.
to that and they go, oh yeah, I felt like that too.
Right.
definitely.
So take a stand, fight for something, but get guidance on what you're going to fight for.
Right. The amount of people that have read 442 and went, hey, Arjuna was pretty cool. He took a stand. Maybe I could do that too.
Right.
You know.
Right.
But if the Gita was Arjuna saying, "Listen up, guys! Like you need to go out there and you know."
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because we're reading, in one sense, we're passively reading this story of Krishna and Arjuna, and we're seeing ourselves in Arjuna.
Right.
That's what brings the wisdom to life for us. It's not a book of Krishna saying, chapter 1, do this, chapter 2, do this, right? We're just hearing what's going on with Arjuna, and we're like, damn, I can really relate to this Arjuna guy. Maybe you know?
I feel like I'm Arjuna.
Yeah.
It's a mirror of this life.
Yeah.
And I love how Krishna refers to like yoga and knowledge as weapons.
Right.
So he's saying the sword of knowledge, which is there to cut the illusion,
Ignorance.
cut the ignorance, right? I thought that's really powerful. It said that the Brahmana, the priestly class of people in the Vedic times specifically, it said that they had soft hearts but sharp tongues.
Yeah.
They had compassion, but when they would speak, their words may sound harsh, but it would be there to cut your egos, cut your ignorance.
To pierce through all the layers of nescience.
Exactly. And it said that from all the subtle energies that exist in this world, the ego is the thickest layer and the hardest to really pierce and get through. Wow. Hence why it needs a significant weapon to...
Nirvishesha shunyavadi pastita deshatarine. Beautiful. Well, on that note, we want to wish Keli all the best in his journey to being a great person that many people will follow. And this isn't, even though this might be the end in this format with Keli with us, I'm sure you're going to see him at Kirtan with me soon. This isn't the end of the trio.
I'm not going to join the army, don't worry.
But we wish him all success, and please join me in appreciating him in the comment section. Show your love and appreciation for him. If you're watching this episode, send him your love, send him your blessings, and see you guys on the next episode of For Soul's Sake.
If you love this podcast, you'll love my interview with Ambika Devi on how art and spirituality can be used to make a difference in this world.
The only way you can really be happy is when you serve others and when you have a purpose to connect with God. That's the only way you will be happy. Otherwise, no money, no fame, no beauty, nothing can really fulfill you, you know? And then we are living beings that the only thing that can fulfill us is love and service.